Regular viewers of the Eurogamer YouTube channel might be surprised to find out that I'm actually a massive fan of Battle Royale games. Wait, what? Oh, I go on about them all the time. Oh, sorry.
It's pretty safe to say then that between PUBG, H1Z1 and now Apex Legends, I spend a hell of a lot of my gaming time either taking part in last person standing battles to the death or spectating them because I've died in a particularly sausagey way.
Oh, nuts.
This current Battle Royale phenomenon is a relatively recent development, however, and I say this as a person who has been playing games for a very long time.
And I mean a very long time. There's definitely people out there playing PUBG right now who are actually less than half my age. Yikes.
Nowadays, computers, consoles and even mobile phones are powerful enough to populate Battle Royale games with tens of players online at a time. But back before the internet was even a thing and games were measured in kilobytes rather than gigabytes, where could people like me go to get that classic Battle Royale buzz? Well, you can see little pinches of familiar Battle Royale ingredients in plenty of retro games, so here are 5 games from the past that gave me that classic Battle Royale buzz way before Battle Royale games were even a thing. The first game on this list, if you can't be bothered to read what's on screen right now, is Dynablaster, aka the 1991 European release of Bomberman.
I played this so much back in the day on the Game Boy and the Amiga, and believe it or not, most of the gameplay loops in this game are exactly the same as any modern Battle Royale game you might play today, just on a much smaller scale.
At the start of each game, players are on a level footing, alone and defenceless apart from a basic attack. In PUBG or Apex, that attack would be a simple punch. In Bomberman, however, it's a single bomb with a limp explosion, good for nothing more than removing surrounding blocks. As the rounds in each game begin, there's always a short period of time before players meet up, the looting phase if you will. The anticipation of conflict is the driving force here, and in Bomberman, the race to quickly remove blocks and uncover as many power-ups as possible is all-consuming. Finding extra bombs means there's a higher chance of trapping an opponent between a succession of well-placed explosives, whilst extending the blast radius of bombs with a flame power-up increases the likelihood of taking someone out from a distance. The more power-ups a player collects, the greater their chance of surviving their first enemy encounter, and these first moments perfectly mirror the beginning minutes of modern Battle Royale games, where players seek out guns, armour and other assorted attachments.
That's not the only similarity to modern Battle Royale games that you can find in the Bomberman series though.
In Super Bomberman 2 on the Super Nintendo, for instance, when a player meets their maker, the items they were holding are scattered across the arena, prompting a looting frenzy amongst the survivors. This is not unlike something you'll witness in Apex, where, at the end of a prolonged shootout, players scramble to be the first to reach the death boxes and take their pick of the contents.
Taking fire, brothers.
It's a risky manoeuvre that will often put the schnaffler firmly into harm's way, but the potential for a huge payout is definitely worth the risk. Or at least, that's what I keep telling Johnny and Aoife.
Even Battle Royale's signature shrinking play area is something that we've seen before in the Bomberman games. Over time, danger zones push the remaining players together, forcing them into some kind of showdown or consigning them to an embarrassing death. In the case of PUBG, there's an electric field, in H1Z1 the danger zone is a thick green gas, and in the Bomberman games it's a series of indestructible blocks that rain down from above in an ever-decreasing circle, crushing anyone unlucky enough to be standing underneath. Throughout these matches, the one life and you're out factor is the core mechanic that drives players on. You either win or you die, there is no in between. It's this constant fear of oblivion that's the magic ingredient in all of these games. It delivers that heart-in-the-mouth panic when an enemy is close, that gut punch of regret when you make a stupid and fatal mistake, and that intense wash of adrenaline when finally the smoke clears and you find that you're the last person left alive in the arena. So while Bomberman's tiny arenas may not be as grand as PUBG's islands, and the player count may only be a fraction of what you'll find in Apex, the feelings I get when I play multiplayer in any of the games from the Bomberman series are almost indistinguishable.
The next stop on our trip down memory lane is 1982's Chaos for the ZX Spectrum, or to give it its full name, Chaos Battle of the Wizards.
Chaos is a turn-based tactics game that allowed up to 8 human players to take part in a battle to the death, using an assortment of magic spells and creature summons, and while it may not look much by today's standards, this was my first ever experience with a last-person standing style video game, and even after all these years, I still have incredibly fond memories of my times playing it. People often complain about Apex Legends having quite a small map, but really that's nothing compared to Chaos, where all the action took place in a tiny top-down arena that was no bigger than the screen. Still, size isn't everything, and the battles that Chaos players in the 80s were having with each other were every bit as epic as those that modern players are currently having in, say, Fortnite. There's no looting in Chaos, sadly. Instead, each wizard starts a match with a random set of spells and summons. Some of those spells, like Magic Sword or Magic Armour, act like the armour and attachments in modern-day Battle Royale games, giving the wizard defensive or offensive boosts. But most of the fun here was found in summoning creatures and sending them after your foes instead of tackling them head-on. With a full 8-player game, it's not long before things in Chaos get pretty, well, chaotic, with dragons and orcs and giant rats and even gorillas wandering around attacking enemy wizards and minions. But it's when a player casts the dreaded gooey blob spell that things really take a Battle Royale turn. When cast, Gooey Blob appears on the playing field and randomly spreads across the map with each subsequent turn. If it's not dealt with sharpish, the Gooey Blob gives a similar effect to the more predictable shrinking circles in modern Battle Royale games, whereby it constricts the arena and causes damage to anyone who may be in close proximity.
Now, of course the action in Chaos is going to be a lot slower than it is in, say, Fortnite, and you can't slide down hills on your knees like you can in Apex Legends, oh no. But still, coming out the other side of a tense game of Chaos as the last wizard standing was every bit as exhilarating back in the day as winning a chicken dinner is in PUBG nowadays. Most people watching this video should be familiar with the Worms series in some way. I mean, there's been about 20 of them, I think. This one here is the Amiga version, and this one came out in 1995, and it's the first game in the series.
So you're probably already aware that Worms has that familiar last-person standing gameplay loop, but what you might not know is that it contains one of, if not the first examples of Battle Royale-style loot drops in multiplayer video games. During a standard Worms match, players have access to identical weapon loadouts, although some of those only become available after a certain number of moves have been performed. However, if a supply crate was to drop onto the map, players could then gain the upper hand, just so long as they were brave enough to risk the trip to schnaffle the drop and find out exactly what its contents were. Sounds familiar? Of course it does. Random, game-changing loot parachutes into the battlegrounds of PUBG all the time. It drops into Apex's arena with a thundering roar, and it slowly floats down to the ground on a balloon in Fortnite. There are loads more similarities to Battle Royale games in the Worms series, but random airdrops onto the battlefield and the subsequent risk versus reward decision that accompanies their arrival is a mechanic that has appeared in pretty much every game in the series since the first Worms game came out over 24 years ago.
Bloody hell, I actually work with people who are younger than that. Oh, Jesus Christ. Now, this next game might be a little bit of a weird addition for this list, considering it's a single-player game and everything, but still, Hunter for the Amiga is one of the very first examples of a video game version of a wide game that I ever played, and you can spot little bits of Battle Royale all throughout its DNA.
So, first up, you might be wondering what a wide game is. Well, a wide game is basically the sort of game you may have played as a kid. You know the type. Cops and robbers, treasure hunts, capture the base. The sort of games you went out and about to play. Games where you explored, made up your own adventures, and where you weren't confined to a board or a table or a room somewhere.
Kind of like the freedom given to you in modern Battle Royale games versus modern first-person shooters, for instance.
Hunter is probably the first true sandbox game that I ever owned. You play as a 3D soldier in a 3D world who must complete a series of missions that culminate in the assassination of an enemy general. The similarities here to Battle Royale games are abundant. You can go pretty much anywhere you want, although there are danger zones that are full of hazards, and you can find and drive air, sea and land vehicles to get around and about the place. You can also go into pretty much any building you want in order to scavenge loot, be it health, ammo or other useful gadgets. Technical limitations of the time meant that Hunter runs at about 10 frames per second, but back in 1991 I never noticed that frame rate at all. All I saw was a huge open world with the possibilities of unlimited adventures, and I think it's my love for this game that eventually steered me towards loving survival games like DayZ, and then stepping over to Battle Royale games after that.
The final game on this list today is Kung Fu Chaos for the original Xbox. Now, this beat-em-up meets party game might seem like another weird addition to this list, but hidden amongst the game is a mini-game that perfectly encapsulates the fear of those ultra-tense last moments of a Battle Royale match.
The minigame I'm talking about here is called Water Whirl, and if you've played it before, you'll understand just how tense yet hilarious this can be. The premise is incredibly simple. 4 players stand atop poles above a body of water as a crane slowly spins around. The players can either jump the crane as it passes by or hit it, reversing its direction in order to hopefully confuse an opponent and send them into the drink, until only one combatant is left alive. The longer you survive, the faster the crane spins, until suddenly you have nothing to rely on other than quick mental and physical reflexes. Keeping calm under pressure is a must here, and it's something that I still can't do in Battle Royale games. Similarly, when you're the final 2 left alive in a Water Whirl match, the pressure can be overwhelming, and subsequently it can lead you to make terrible game-ending mistakes that you regret for hours after. I played many matches of this minigame with my mates when it first came out, and the fear, adrenaline and hilarity that I experienced in many of those matches is identical to the rush I'd feel when it's just 2 or 3 players alive in the final circle of a Battle Royale game. Stay calm and triumph, or panic under pressure and lose everything. It's Battle Royale in a nutshell.
And there we go. I hope you enjoyed my admittedly weird and somewhat self-indulgent look back at Battle Royale-esque games of my past. If you did, do give this video a like. Don't forget to subscribe to Eurogamer for daily videos about video games, and do have some lovely, successful trips to your local battlegrounds. Goodbye! I'm just going to sit here now while you click on one of these videos. It's what people do when they're waiting for a video to end, and there's like annotations to click on and stuff. Don't mind me.